When Joaquin El Chapo Guzman was operating the world's largest drug cartel out of Sinaloa, Mexico, he was doing most of his banking through Europe's largest bank.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 most notorious money laundering schemes.
Did I enjoy it? Oh, sure, it was profitable too.
Do you know where the money went?
Not really. Not really.
Back in the 20s, Al Capone lorded over a criminal empire worth hundreds of millions of dollars. For a time, he virtually ruled all of Chicago.
For this list, we'll be ranking the most high-profile accusations of money laundering to ever make the international headlines. Did we leave any out? Sound off in the comments. Number 10, Paul Manafort.
Now, look, there's been some talk about what's going on inside the campaign. Are you running this campaign now? Is that the fairest way to look at it?
Donald Trump is running this campaign, and I'm working directly for Donald Trump, but I'm working with the whole team as well.
Paul Manafort served as the chairman for Donald Trump's 2016 presidential campaign, a job that he held from June to August of that year. The lobbyist had plenty of experience in the field prior to serving Trump, having worked with several other presidents in the past, including Gerald Ford and Ronald Reagan.
He built up influence as an advisor to Republican presidential candidates. And in the 1980s, he found new markets for his influence overseas.
However, his connections didn't save him from being tried for tax evasion, bank fraud, witness tampering, money laundering, and other charges in 2018. He wound up admitting to most of the charges and was found guilty on 8, including 2 for bank fraud and another for failing to disclose a foreign bank account.
But it was later ruled that he had deceived prosecutors about a few things, including his interactions with a Russian associate, a breach of his plea deal.
Nonetheless, he was pardoned by President Trump on December 23, 2020.
A White House statement called Manafort a victim of, quote, perhaps the greatest witch hunt in American history.
Number 9, HSBC. The HSBC Bank is one of the largest in the UK, doing business with customers big and small. Unfortunately, the bank made headlines in 2012 when the United States accused HSBC of failing to properly follow standard anti-money laundering policies.
The investigation revealed that staggering amounts of cash, hundreds of thousands of U.S. dollars daily, were being deposited into HSBC Mexico using boxes specially made to fit through their tellers' windows to speed the transactions.
The accusations went on to claim that these failures led to over $800 million being laundered through American channels for narcotics cartels.
In 2012, the U.S. Justice Department prepared 175 charges against HSBC for money laundering, but then let the company off with a DPA, Deferred Prosecution Agreement.
The HSBC Bank wound up paying a fine of almost $2 billion. It was not prosecuted by the U.S. Attorney General, however, after the UK warned that the indictment could result in serious economic instability.
This is a signal to other banks that if you do this kind of stuff, you'll get a parking ticket, you'll pay the fine, and you'll move on.
Number 8, Liberty Reserve.
U.S. prosecutors are calling digital currency exchange Liberty Reserve the bank of choice for the criminal underworld.
The discussion surrounding digital currency has definitely entered the mainstream in recent years, but Liberty Reserve was working in the domain all the way back in 2006. Based in Costa Rica, Liberty Reserve grew to have over 1 million users. It operated without a license and made little to no effort when it came to security, which for some users was one of the biggest draws.
I found that Liberty Reserve has not just been used for online transactions, but even human trafficking as well.
Ultimately, Liberty Reserve was seized by the U.S. government in 2013 and indicted under the Patriot Act for allegedly laundering over $6 billion within the criminal underworld.
But as alleged, the only liberty that Liberty Reserve gave many of its users was the freedom to commit crimes, as it became a popular hub for fraudsters, hackers, and traffickers.
Number 7, BCCI. The investigation behind our next entry was very clear with its findings. The Bank Credit and Commerce International intentionally tried to steer clear of any financial regulation during its existence from 1972 to 1991. The private bank serviced some of the world's most notorious leaders, including Saddam Hussein and Manuel Noriega, not to mention holding accounts for drug traffickers like the Medellin cartel. Even American organizations like the CIA and National Security Council utilized BCCI, with the latter reportedly using the bank to move around money during the Iran-Contra scandal.
In 1986, the intelligence community developed and disseminated information that linked the Abu Nidal organization and its activities to a BCCI branch in Europe through the use of front companies.
Its branches were raided and locked down in 1991, and a lawsuit against the bank was ultimately finalized in 1998. Number 6, MEYER LANSKY. Whoever says crime doesn't pay never heard of MEYER LANSKY.
A shrewd master manipulator who claimed that he never killed a man.
He did business and made his living through men who regularly killed people, and so is equally guilty.
Lansky was an infamous member of the American Jewish mob and deeply connected with the Italian mafia. His early years were spent rubbing elbows with some of the most notorious mobsters of the day, including Lucky Luciano and childhood friend Bugsy Siegel, while pioneering one of the most common money laundering practices in the world, Swiss bank accounts.
Ben Siegel and Meyer Lansky were a great combination. They complemented each other.
Lansky did the thinking. It was Bugsy who did the whacking.
Lansky laundered money through a number of shell companies during his life and was never caught or tried for these crimes. The biggest thing the authorities ever nabbed Lansky for? Illegal gambling.
Look, I'm a gambler, nothing more. That's what I am. That's what I always was.
Number 5, Al Capone.
Within a few years, Capone would be running a criminal organization, the likes of which Chicago had never seen.
The life of Al Capone was many things, but at the very heart of his dark story lurks this one very important life lesson: you can't fool the IRS. Well, unless you're a private equity firm, in which case you can basically do whatever you want. After an infamous and high-profile career in organized crime, Capone's eventual downfall was tax evasion.
Here he comes, the big boy himself. What's the hurry, Al? Where you're going, you'll have loads of time.
Capone was very careful with his financial dealings, utilizing Western Union to move small amounts of money around in a process known as structuring. The popularization of the term money laundering is largely thanks to gangsters like Capone, who favored using a chain of laundromats to clean his illegally gotten gains. Number 4, NAURU. You'd be forgiven for not being too familiar with the history of Nauru, as this republic stands behind Vatican City and Monaco as the 3rd smallest country in the world.
With 11,000 people on an island just over twice the size of Sydney Airport, Nauru is one of the smallest, most remote nations on Earth.
Size isn't everything, however, as proven by the notorious Nauru money laundering scheme.
Common to the Nauru story, the prime banknote scandal brought together a cast of mixed credibility.
The country and its banks were used as an offshore tax shelter for the Russian mafia, with groups reportedly laundering over $70 billion during the 1990s.
Russian criminal syndicates took advantage of this opportunity to launder tens of billions of dollars through an unregulated financial system, feeding the increasingly corrupt government and draining the country of its resources.
Suspicions and scrutiny continued into the 2000s, and Nauru and Russia have remained close allies to this day. Number 3, DANSKE Bank.
The bank didn't seem to be a victim. They seemed to be a participant in these mirror trades.
In the late 2010s, investigations into the Estonian branch of Denmark-based Danske Bank exposed one of the largest money laundering operations in history. Between 2007 and 2015, the branch accepted a staggering 200 billion euros in suspicious transactions, many from non-residents and shell companies.
Danske now believes a large part of that money was suspicious, some of it linked to organised crime, drugs and tax evasion.
A lot of the incoming funds came from Russia. Despite reports from a whistleblower and the Estonian Financial Supervision Authority, Danske Bank turned a blind eye until it all hit the fan in 2018 and 10 employees were arrested. Danske Bank CEO Thomas Borgen resigned. Branch manager Avi Arehe is believed to have taken his own life, and the branch was closed in 2019.
Chief Executive Thomas Borgen quit following the money laundering investigation, saying, "It's clear that Danske Bank has failed to live up to its responsibility."
Number 2, Standard Chartered Bank.
Welcome to the very latest British banking scandal. And this one is particularly shocking.
Standard Chartered has its headquarters in London, but its international operations see it working in over 70 countries, and its importance can't be overstated when it comes to the global economy.
What is important, however, is that we explain what we do in rational terms to our employees and that they come with us on this journey.
This doesn't mean that Standard Chartered Bank is immune to controversy, however. In 2019, the corporation paid out a fine to the tune of $1.1 billion to the UK and US for poor money laundering controls and ignoring international sanctions against countries like Iran, Syria, and Myanmar.
So we spent the last 3 years cleaning up Standard Chartered. It is now a super strong bank. I can't tell you how excited I am to be working there. And I can share this enthusiasm now because I feel like we're through the really hard restructuring that we needed to do to get the bank clean.
It was later charged again in 2021 by the Reserve Bank of India for delays in reporting fraudulent behavior.
We're Standard Chartered, and we're here for good.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications.
Number 1. Wachovia. A recurring theme in these stories is that people in charge like to ignore warnings and suspicious activity when money is flowing in. That's just what happened to Wachovia, based in Charlotte, North Carolina. In 2008, the bank got in hot water when it was revealed that companies called Casas de Cambio had used their services to launder money for Mexican and Colombian drug cartels. And not just a few million, but an astonishing $378.4 billion.
In effect, the bankers are having a free play at the roulette table using somebody else's money. And in the event that they win, they share in the profits. But when they lose, they walk away from the action with no consequence to their own actions.
To get that deep in, senior management had to ignore warnings from their own anti-money laundering experts that they were, probably laundering money.
There were several warnings by the compliance people they had on staff that these cartels were using the bank to launder money, and they were basically vetoed by the people who ran the businesses.
Wachovia eventually paid the U.S. Treasury a $50 million fine and was forced to give up $110 million in profit.
Do you agree with our picks? Check out this other recent clip from WatchMojo. And be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.